Good evening. I'd like to call to order the public session of our board meeting tonight. With regard to attendance, we have regrets from trustees Ron LeClaire and Kathy Cook, and also from our student trustee Samir Mohammed. And on the phone tonight is trustees Nancy Armstrong and Linda Chin. So with that, I'm looking for a motion for approval of the agenda. Trustee Nelson, Trustee Sipcar, all those in support. That's carried. Thank you. And a motion to convene to private session. Trustee McKinley, Trustee Burgess, all those in support. That's carried. Thank you to those who are listening or viewing. Just to explain, we're now going to convene to private session of the board, and we will return to continue our public meeting at 7 o'clock. Thank you. So we are reconvening our public session meeting. We've already approved our agenda, and just a reminder that we have regrets from trustees Ron LeClaire, Kathy Cook, and our student trustee Sarim Mohammed. And on the phone, we have trustees Nancy Armstrong and Linda Chin. And I would just remind the trustees on the phone if they could please mute so that we don't get the background noise reverberating. And welcome to everybody who's joined our meeting tonight. And we will start with student trustee Pine presenting the land acknowledgement.
Through the chair, we acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water originally inhabited by the indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, and Huron-Wendat peoples. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to call on the director for the special orders of the day and ask if everybody would please rise.
A tribute to Kelly Collins. The Marlborough family was saddened at the loss of their colleague and friend, Kelly. She was a valiant, turning a 9-month terminal cancer diagnosis into 9 very productive years, working through treatments and always happy to be at school. Her career totaled 33 years with Greater Essex County District School Board, and the last 23 of those years were spent at Marlborough. While her students always came first, anybody at the school that was in need knew that they could always ask Miss Collins. As an educational assistant, she embraced many complex cases, but saw only the children. Some students with who she played games, made cookies, did arts and crafts, shared what she meant to them. They said, "She was so kind, she was so much fun, she was so very special, and she always helped whenever we needed help." Words don't suffice to describe the loss to the Marlborough students and staff, and they hope that her spirit and her memory will live on through those that she served. If you could please join me in a moment of silence. If you could remain standing for the second tribute. A tribute to Wendy Boliveau. The students at John Campbell lovingly referred to Wendy as Miss B. She was dedicated to making a difference in the lives of the children with special needs, an educational assistant who left an indelible mark on every life that she touched. More than just an educational assistant, she was a guide, a source of comfort, and a cheerleader for every child in her classroom. She had an innate ability to connect with each child, understand their needs, and help them overcome their challenges. Her commitment to providing a safe and a nurturing space for each child was unparalleled. Wendy was also a friend and a confidant to many. She was always ready to lend her ear or offer encouragement. Her kindness and her empathy extended well beyond the walls of the classroom, leaving a lasting impact on everybody that she encountered. Though she may no longer be with us physically, her presence will forever remain in our hearts and the lives of the children that she served. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you, Director Houston, and on behalf of the trustees, our sincere sympathy to the family members. Is there anyone who needs to declare a conflict of interest for the business on the agenda tonight? No, seeing none. We did have a private session meeting, but
There are no actions. Of the
no
private
actions
session.
from that meeting. Item G, approval of the minutes from January 16th. Trustee McKinley, Trustee Sipcar. Any corrections? No? No? Okay, all those in support? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? Trustee Burgess?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Page 3, there was the annual expenses. I remember, I think the question was about the DIMCOM for OPSPA versus regular PD, and I wondered if Superintendent she followed up at all.
Thank you through Madam Chair. That PD is charged to OPSPA, not to individual trustees.
So supplement that, so that report will be changed then, or?
That PD, it's already reflected in there.
Right. Okay, but it's not personal PD, it's like on behalf of the board. That's all.
Correct. Okay, maybe we need to talk offline.
Okay, thank you very much.
The presentation from our student trustee.
Through you, Madam Chair, unfortunately Sarm couldn't join us tonight, and the student trustee report was not in, so I'm going to try my best to kind of hit the key points of the month. It was pretty busy, but myself and Senate have been very busy. On January 25th and 26th, I was able to join Trustee Burgess, Trustee McKinley, and Director Houston at OPSPA's Public Education Symposium. While there, I was able to participate in several sessions, including navigating complex public relations, food literacy in Ontario, artificial intelligence in our world and education, and affirming Muslim leaders. These sessions were truly well thought out and allowed for a lot of thought and reflection. I also had the opportunity to meet new trustees who share the commonality of always putting students first, and have a conversation with Steve Paikin, our keynote speaker, who works for TV Ontario. OPSPA announced their new rebrand and the logo, in which all in attendance received a hat with the logo stitched on it. It was an honor to be able to represent Greater Essex at this conference, and a big thank you goes out to Michelle Marcus for booking all the accommodations and sessions for me, and Director Houston for always supporting my professional development. Asta Eco's Education Action Conference took place February 8th to 11th in Ottawa. I was able to lead several engaging activities with the Public Education Cabinet, including one on prioritizing strategies and creating roadmaps to goals. At our marketplace session, student trustees were able to go to different booths and learn about issues affecting students around all of Ontario. I got to host a booth on student transportation, specifically with the bus driver shortages and consortiums, but there were also many other booths discussing topics like food literacy, artificial intelligence, menstrual equity, and more. Annie Kidder, who works with the Queen's Park on policy, was able to join us and engage in conversations about what we think the big issues affecting students are. We were also joined by the Executive Director of CPCO, or Catholics Principal Council of Ontario, and learn about the structure of these organizations and what they hope to see in the future in regards to what's happening in schools. The Public Education Cabinet published their internal report giving updates on our advocacy goals and what we have accomplished thus far in the term. with a big goal on continuing our work on menstrual equity across Ontario. A thank you goes out to our Vice President of Public Education at OSTA, Savrap Kaur-Saran, for all her work in advocacy and her meetings with key government officials to make the Cabinet's goal a reality. Happy Random Acts of Kindness Week goes out to everyone. That would be last week. So I got to come to the board office on our PA day last Friday and participate by going around to every department in the board office and putting sticky notes with little kind messages on them. So an example of what some of them look like are up on the screen right now. And Senate was really happy that we got to show our appreciation to everyone at the board office because they don't always get to see a lot of students. So to really thank them for all their work that they do for us. And that was a big success. And also, just a little note, our student trustee election will be taking place on the 29th, where our voting delegates will be picking 2 new student trustees for next term.
Thank you very much for your report. And
Thank
next.
you. And now I will read the Student of the Month nomination. So, the Student of the Month for February is Nolan Papigno, a grade 12 student at Bell River District High School. Nolan is a true role model for this month's theme of kindness. Nolan Papigno is the kindest student I have ever known, says STEPS Department Head Miss Sovereign. If you were to survey our classroom and ask, who is your best friend, almost all the students would answer, Nolan. Our nonverbal students would not say his name, but they would point to him and give him a big hug. This is because Nolan exudes natural kindness. But like anything else in this world, skills take practice to develop, and Nolan practices kindness daily. To him, he is just being kind, but to others, he is the most thoughtful and accepting student in the room. When Joel needs help with the lid of his thermos at lunchtime, he finds Nolan. When Leo and Parinma need someone to turn on the music and dance along with them, they find Nolan. When Isaac wants a friend to swim with on Friday nights, he asks Nolan. When Elise needs help getting her wheelchair through the doorway, Nolan is there. When someone does a kind gesture for Nolan, he writes them a heartfelt and sincere letter of thanks. And when a friend is having a tough time learning something new, Nolan never underestimates or criticizes their abilities. Instead, he is there to offer a kind smile and encouraging words. Nolan is patient and tolerant, knowing that his friends can do anything that they put their minds to. Students know that they are safe and cared for with Nolan by their side. Nolan's simple acts of kindness change people's lives every single day at Bell River. And students are so fortunate to have him as a role model at the school. Congratulations, Nolan, for being selected by Student Senate for February's Student of the Month theme of kindness. Yep.
The one to the middle, the one into the middle.
We're just going to go right over.
Yep, you can come up and take pictures.
Congratulations, Nolan, from the trustees. Moving on to the next on our agenda, we have no delegations, and we have 2 speakers signed up on the sign-up sheet, both to speak about high school tracks. Just a reminder that the speakers will have 5 minutes each. And the first one, Gino Fakov, are you there? You can come up to the mic.
Board members? Is it on? Thank you, sir. Good evening. My name is Gino Facca. I'm a former parent of a Herman student and a taxpayer in the city of Windsor. And I was kind of surprised. I can't say I didn't know about it, to be honest, but I was kind of surprised on how little the consideration was being taken in regards to the high school running track demolitions, because that's really what we're doing. We're taking that facility out, and chances are they'll never be reinstated. So just, the reason I'm speaking tonight is a way to salvage 3 of the 4 tracks. The reason I'm saying 3 of the 4 is because the Windsor Stadium facility, which is basically next door to Kennedy, has already been slated to be repaired or replaced, or there's been a lot of money allocated to that facility. But Bell River, Herman, and Massey look like they're going to suffer, and all those tracks are going to be removed, filled in with dirt, and then seeded on top and returned back to grass. So what I was hoping, was there a way that we could probably try to salvage the 3 tracks? And I just want to make sure that everybody on the board realizes that these tracks affect about 4,000 students in and around the 3 tracks. And those students don't really have anywhere else to go that's close by or safe to get to. So let's say there was a track event. Somebody had said, well, we'll go to Riverside or one of the other tracks that are regulation tracks, rubber surfaced, and I believe 8 lanes, which is what the regulations are. I think Vista's only 6, but to be a regulated track, you need 8 lanes. Those kids would either have to walk, take the bus, get a ride from parents, and that would put them in more danger. Plus, how many of these kids are actually going to bother going if they have to go halfway across the city to get to a school? You know? Then the other part of this is the STEPS program. A lot of kids go out on that track during the day, and the STEPS teachers bring them around, the workers. These kids get to run around the track, they get to walk around the track, they get to be pushed around the track. That really calms them down. They bring them back into the classroom, they teach them for a while. Sometimes they'll go out 2 or 3 times in one day, I was told, because then that way they can be taught, or they can be relaxed, or they can appreciate nature for half a day. So when I was reading through, and I talked to Andrew Dowie, I talked to a few people. When I was reading through the budget and the paperwork that Andrew gave me that came from the school board, it showed some pricing on removals and then reinstatement and the cost between putting down rubber surface tracks, putting down asphalt tracks, or putting grass down. And I saw those numbers and they seemed a little bit high to me, so I went out and I got estimates from contractors, and not your run-of-the-mill, you know, backyard contractor. These are reputable firms in and around Essex County. And the numbers came back quite a bit lower, almost 60% lower. And I'm just wondering if I'm misreading the tender or looking at the spec. But from what I saw from the engineering report, the price just didn't make sense. When I have to mobilize equipment to bring stuff in, I'm going to take stuff away, so I'm going to bring in a dozer, bring in excavator, bring in a dump truck, bring in a crew, just to tear out the existing asphalt, cart it away, dump it at a facility that accepts asphalt, and then I have to bring topsoil in, seed it. There's quite a bit of overlap between the 2 processes of just removing the asphalt, regrading the top couple of inches. All right. So what I'm trying to say, is there a way that we could do maybe one track per year, right? Over the next 3 or 4 years, but just asphalt. That's all, just asphalt. It doesn't need to be rubberized.
Thank you for your presentation. Do the trustees have any questions for clarification? Trustee Burgess?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Through you, if I could ask, we have a process that any kind of request for proposal, RFP process, people have to be pre-qualified. I wanted to know if I could ask the speaker if the ones that he got, he asked if they had met any kind of criteria or made an application with Greater Essex County District School Board.
Through the speaker, I guess? Is that how I would go, or would I answer directly to you?
Do you have an answer to that question?
I do, 100%.
So
So 2 of the contractors did do work for the Greater Essex County School Board. The one did work for the separate school board. So they understand the qualifications, they understand the liabilities, bonding, all that other stuff.
Student trustee?
Could I just ask, if you get a moment, if you could just send the quotes that you received from other people to the board?
I could, yeah.
Thank you.
Some of them wanted to remain anonymous because then they didn't want to hamper. There's some fear out there in the world, right? They don't want to get anybody upset.
If you want to redact it, just the numbers would be good.
Okay, then, I can do that.
Are there any other questions for clarification? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next on the speakers list is Gerald and Suzanne Haladi, also speaking on high school tracks. And remind you that you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
We'd like to address you guys to talk about the same thing. I'm an Olympian. I teach for your school board. I'm a mom of an athlete who'll be going to your school board, attending the school. I would not be an Olympian today if it wasn't for the Bell River track. I have coached 3 Olympians in this city. And if you don't see that as value, then representing your country, representing your city, this is valuable. We know that exercise can treat mental illness better than any drug. We know that exercise in recent studies has led to better literacy scores. We are a school, we are here for the kids. Why are we ripping out playgrounds? And if it's a money thing, your numbers are wrong. We're asking and we're finding out your numbers are wrong. And we need to do this for the kids. I've coached for your school board for 30 years. If you add Gerald's coaching for the school board, what are we at?
60 plus.
60 plus years. We have produced over probably 100 post-secondary academic scholarship athletes. We have one sitting in the room right here who's a potential post-secondary athlete who got recruited by us, who is doing track and field and being recruited by post-secondary educational institutions because he is a talented kid. When I was an athlete, I couldn't do drugs. I couldn't drink alcohol because I'd be tested. It kept me out of trouble. It's keeping kids out of trouble. We have them running in a safe, protected environment, observed by credited teachers, and you're willing to rip that out and send them out into the public, running on public walkways, unsupervised. This is not a good choice. If we have the money and your quotes are wrong, we need to make the change for the kids. That's why we're here. I talked to my class today. Who uses the track? Who learned to ride a bike? Half the kids raised their hand. They learned to ride the bike on the Bell River track. We're taking away those opportunities. We need to rethink this. We need to look at the quotes.
My name is Gerald Halati. Like my wife had said, I believe in our students. I am, and my wife is, we are on the front line. We are there every day. I am at that school almost every single day of the year providing opportunities for students to excel, to be the best. Not to be first place, not to be the top dog, but to do their best, the personal best. Very simply, when we look at a sport like track and field, by the time you get to grade 12, most people know who's going to win the race. But still, 42 people, and you can look at the results from last year, 42 senior boys will want to compete in the long jump, knowing that there will be 41 people who will not win. It's not about being number one. It's not about being the best. It's simply providing opportunities. Without these tracks, there will not be opportunities for hundreds of kids in our community. You dig those tracks out right now, that's not going to happen. To get Bell River students to Tecumseh Vista at 2:30 is a transportation nightmare. There's no buses available, so we have to either put them in cabs or have them drive on their own. The number of accidents, the risk of them getting seriously hurt is far greater than a slip or trip or something that might happen on a track. And in fact, past 18 years at Bell River, we have yet to have an accident or an injury as a result of someone tripping on that track. So this fear of litigation, this fear of being unsafe is a very tricky word, because when we look at what could happen by transporting kids and what could happen if they're allowed to compete on these tracks,
Time's running.
is
6 seconds.
nonsense.
Do we get double time because there are two of us?
No.
I should have done the extra line. If I would have done the other line, we'd be able to keep talking.
And I'm just going to say
Thank you.
thank you very much for the opportunity, because the kids are number one.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, Trustee Buckler?
Through you, Madam Chair, as the trustee for Bell River, I've only received 2 emails from anyone upset about the track. I would love to hear more if people are upset. That would be helpful to me to advocate on your behalf. And so I just wanted to put that out for you. And I wanted to ask if you had looked into any areas of fundraising to help, because we're looking at a $9 million deficit. So
Okay.
the funds just don't exist for the tracks right now. This is our last, we don't want to do this. We truly don't want to do this. But if you've been talking to people in the area about fundraising, we'd love to know about it.
Okay, so number one, if you could provide the best possible contact for you that we can flood your email. So if you could do that, I am on publicboard.ca, Gerald Halati. So we will make sure.
There, we're good.
We will make sure that you are aware of that. Number two, yes, we have a parent, Angie Mitchell, who's taken the lead on this for us, because we are teaching, coaching, parenting, and she has done some of the research and has numbers for you, and is super excited about taking the lead. And that's beyond us. I am not a political person. I am a frontline worker. I've been with this board for 30 plus years. And to have my son go to this school next year and not have a track is a tragedy. It truly is.
Fix it. So the decision's been
I have a
made,
question.
but any fundraising that could possibly fix a track would have to be committed for annual maintenance too. So you're talking millions of dollars, not just a few. I just wanted to clarify that. And Trustee Burgess has a question for clarification.
Question for clarification, and I think Trustee Cheen had a question too. I heard her pop up. So it's the same question, Madam Chair, through you, if I could. There's been another allegation, another, thing of our numbers are wrong. And we make decisions based on credible numbers, and I have faith in our purchasing and, estimates, et cetera, and how we crunch our numbers for our budgets. But through you, Maybe a question for administration. Is our request, our RFP process broad enough? Do we get enough to make a determination in order to make the decisions? Is there any chance that we can relook at anything? Even the supply chain stuff, have prices changed in the last year?
I'll just comment and then I'll ask Superintendent Armstrong, but I do recall that when this was presented to me, there are very few contractors that meet the criteria for what we need for the tracks. I think that there's very few in Canada, as I recall, but Superintendent Armstrong can
But
respond
there's
to
a
that.
difference between
Sorry.
the IAAF
No.
track and what we are wanting.
Okay, Superintendent Armstrong?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. What Facility Services did when the process was looking at the safety of these tracks was they procured the services of an architect and an engineering firm that went out and did a detailed report on each of those tracks, which was reflected, the information was reflected in the report that went to trustees on September the 19th. In order to do the work itself now of replacing and repairing or removing these tracks, then it has to go to an RFP because the value of the procurement is going to require that it be competitively procured, at which time we will have quotes from various contractors that are prepared to do that work, and then procurement through the process will make the determination on the lowest bid and who that work goes to. But we feel comfortable. We use these consulting and engineering firms all the time. We feel comfortable with the report. The report provided a number of different scenarios for these tracks. And of course, the proof will be, in terms of what the actual cost will be, is when it's competitively procured in the spring.
Trustee Burgess?
Is there a possibility, though my question too, is there a possibility that prices have changed? Because I know that some consumer prices at the height of the pandemic, when things were being, like the supply chain actually has pushed all the way through, have any changes in costs? Are they
Are you
apparent?
suggesting that administration should re-engage the architect and engineer to find out?
No, I don't think the
So-
engineer and the architect, they would say what was wrong and what needed
Okay,
to be done.
so-
So the RFP, I'm wondering if the materials or the work has changed because some of the contracting prices have altered in the last year.
That's not a question for the speakers? Okay. So, Trustee Chin, do you have a question for the speaker for clarification?
Oh, yes. I heard not very clear, but I'm very interested in the topic that I think the speaker mentioned that totally destroy all the tracks will do more harm than keep it and make the students to do exercise, physical exercise on that. And I want to clarify how if it's correct information and how he feels about it, because based on my experience, I came from China, and we have all kinds of track and fields, and they are all different quality, but I do believe that all of them are good for the kids to practice and do exercise. So I want the speaker to explain more about why he think about this. And I have another question: is that if we can find another substitute way to keep the track, just to do the more simple repair, fill the spaces and tracks, and temporarily do that, and postpone the decision and do our best to find a way to apply for funding to do all this, repair or.
Okay, Trustee Chin, I'm having a lot of trouble trying to narrow down what your question is for clarification to the speakers from what they said during their 5 minutes. It sounds like you're questioning something.
I'm wondering if the speaker has understand what I mean, and if you can give explanation.
Not until I know what the question is, no. So what is the question? Does anyone have it?
The question is that compare with totally tripped though, and discard all the tracks, and why the speaker said it would be more beneficial to the kids to keep the track and do exercise on that.
Do you know what the question is?
It sounds like they're asking about their professional opinion on the benefits of students using tracks and keeping it, was what I got from that. The benefits from having a track, yeah.
I'm not seeing that there is a direct question to what, for clarification, to what the speakers spoke about.
I mean, the speaker mentioned that keeping the track and will be beneficial to the kids. Is that correct? May I talk with the speaker?
So that's correct. I can't hear.
That keeping the tracks is beneficial to the students.
Yes, the speakers that have presented tonight have been making that point, that in terms of the physical wellness of the students, that the tracks have benefit.
Yes. So,
Trustee Chin, I'm sorry, but I'm having a lot of difficulty hearing you tonight and trying to sort out what your question is. So right now I'm going to move to Trustee Sipkar, who also has a question. Maybe that'll help you. I don't know.
okay.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to the presenters. So from my understanding, what I was hearing, when we received the report, there were options in terms of the tracks being, the high standard rubberized surfaces that you would see at Sandwich Secondary School, but then there were also options for just a paved asphalt, particularly for Bell River, Massey, and Herman. Is it my understanding from your presentation that you would be okay, or like what the quality of track that you would need would be if it were to be something, say, in the asphalt? Are you advocating for it to be a full rubberized professional track, 8-lane track or 6-lane that you would see at the Sandwich?
Okay, your preference on the type of track.
Okay. So what we're looking for is a training surface, and that training surface can be asphalt. That we understand that this is not going to be an IAAF sanctioned facility, and that's not necessary. What we need is an opportunity for kids to train, to be healthy, to move, so that we can be better as a community. And that is the most important thing. You take that out, that does not exist. It is not coming back, and we need something that we can walk on for our STEP student, for Nolan, who's at our school, who would use that every single day. We can't use that now.
Just
And
supplementary to
that quality
question.
And I'm going to say this, is that, when we were told that our shot put circle also is quote unquote condemned, that's ludicrous, because that shot circle is one of the best in southwestern Ontario. Not a crack in that cement. Nothing about that circle is dangerous, and it got lumped in with the rest of that track because the interpretation of the report could be wrong. It could be interpreted as, you cannot have a track meet here. And that's how I feel as the frontline worker, that you are lumping this all together saying, oh, it's not good for IAAF competition, so it's good for nobody.
So I just had a report that it was actually just excessive weeds, but our kids can't throw in it because it's deemed unusable. So the quotes you did get were IAAF standard track. We do not need an IAAF, International Athletic Association Federation track, certified track. We just want a surface for the kids to run, for our feeder schools to run. And the surface, we've been told, can cost less than the cost of replacing it with grass. So we're just asking for you guys to look at that.
And
You
do
have
your
the
due
money there.
diligence, right?
So,
Sipcart?
so just a quick supplemental, just a yes or no. So given the choice between no track or an IAAF standard, it's between the two, but you're really saying that there's a third option, which could be just a surface that is good enough for students to train on, correct? And you're advocating for that kind of
We
third
want
option?
that. We want a surface for students to move on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, second time, is it? First? Okay, student, trustee?
Through you, Madam Chair, I was just wondering if you could expand on your frequency of use before this decision was made. I know that we heard back from Massey when we were under the impression that it hadn't been used in a while, that they sent an email saying it had been used. I was just wondering if that's similar to you and
Okay, so our situation is very similar to Massey. We have 16 STEP students that would be walking that track pretty much every day. We have 400 plus phys ed students who use that from September till late November and then February through June. So when the weather is good, we're going to get out on that track. It's been used by our track team for the past 18 years where we're averaging more than 50 students per year. That track is used. And after school, if you go there, there are families on it. It's community. It's used every day. You'll see people out there. And our elementary track meets have been held there for the past 18 years as well.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our new business. Item L1 is the approval of the name for the new school in the town of Tecumseh. What's your preference on this, trustees? Trustee Buckler?
I'll move this item, and I would like to make the recommendation that the board consider the name Beacon Heights Elementary School as a new name for the new school. And I'm happy to speak to this as a chair of the committee and the mover of the motion once I get a seconder.
Do we have a seconder for the motion? Trustee Burgess, thank you. So on the motion, Trustee Buckler?
So I am well aware that the committee I chaired, their first choice was North Shore. It was used for a long, long time before we started building this school, so it became very familiar to them. And then also, I did a little bit of research, and our Lakeshore Public Schools, 8 kilometers. So we would have a Lakeshore and a North Shore. And I thought it was a little redundant. As trustees of the board, we have to look at the whole system. We can't just look at the community. We have to see where the name fits in with the school and best fits with the community. So I also looked into the research at the word north. And we have North Star, Northwood, Gosfield North, and a few others with the north in it. So the redundancy didn't make this brand new school we had been waiting for so long stand out. So it's my belief that Beacon, which means a light to guide or a person who inspires and encourages others, and Heights, which is a high place, an extreme point, a point of excellence, heights of success, better represents the community it's going to serve. It's my belief that it's a standard our community can reach and can live by. So for those two reasons, I'm putting forward Beacon Heights as the name for the new school, and I hope I have your support.
Trustee Burgess?
I supported the motion, and you said elementary school instead of public school.
Whichever, that wasn't even in, so.
Okay, so the second choice was Beacon Heights Public School. If I could amend it to one of the choices to be Beacon Heights Public School.
That's fine.
That would honor at least something that the community did. I support it. I think it's a great name.
Thank you.
Trustee Pine?
Yeah, when I first heard Beacon Heights, it did sound pretty interesting, but it kind of rang a bell of familiarity in my brain. The only concern that I would have is it does kind of sound a lot like Beacon Hill in Boston, which is a primarily white-owned area with 86% being white-owned, and it's the most expensive area in Boston to live. So I just had a bit of concerns about the socioeconomic message that that sends, as well as going somewhat against our beliefs at the board.
Go ahead, Trustee Burgess.
I would just say that there are beacons almost everywhere, that there's a coastline and that there's a lighthouse. And that's synonymous with that. And I mean, you see a ton of places in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia and out west, I know in Victoria, Beacon, same thing. It's not always associated with socioeconomic things, but it is associated usually with rocks and water.
I'll just add to that I was a member of the committee as the second trustee, and that concern was not raised at all associating with Boston. It was all about the water and the rocks and the lighthouse. So just to clarify that that's what the committee was thinking. Okay. Trustee McKinley?
Thank you, Chair. I came in fully expecting North Shore. So I'm just wrapping my head around Beacon Heights, and I can live with it. It was, one of the options. So, but I was kind of getting attached to North Shore like everybody else. But that's all. It's just my comment. I'll support it.
Yeah, I would just say that looking over the names that were given to us by the committee, I thought that Riverwood, whether Shore or Heights, did have a better ring to it and sounded better when I talked to my student senators from that kind of region between Bell River and Tecumseh. I talked to both of them. And I would just say, I understand that it was not the committee's ideology behind picking Beacon Heights, but I'm just trying to look at, in the future, what the optics will be and what the board will look like, and we don't want to have to change it in any near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak? Oh, Trustee Burgess?
Just one of the things that I remember when we were approving our logo was reaching for the stars, reaching for the heights. And that was part of the thing, the reaching for the heights. That's another connotation. I don't know if it came up at the committee, but I like that image.
Thank you. I'm going to call for the vote. All those in support of Beacon Heights?
I'm in favor. It's Trustee Armstrong.
Favor? Thank you. That passes. Thank you very much. You now have a new name. Congratulations. You didn't hear me? Okay. This L2 is the approval of the name for the new school in the town of Kingsville. Burgess?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, by regulation, the area trustee, if there's only one area trustee, gets to chair the naming committee, and I want to say it was an honor and a privilege. Thank you. I was joined by Trustee McKinley. You can see the membership of the committee members here. I want to thank them for their work. It was a lot of work. I want to also recognize that in the call for submissions, which came out sometime in October, or maybe even the end of September, there were over 600 names given, submitted. That shows a tremendous interest. I want to thank everybody who submitted a name. There were themes. It was collated. It was a big job for admin to collate, like names, similar names, along themes. Half of them did come up, I would say, with things that the committee ended up with. But the other half didn't. And I want to also acknowledge that the committee membership avoided the membership from Pelee Island, and I was hoping that everybody who was a feeder school to the new school would have been involved in that. And although the principal from Jack Minor Public School, Mr. Huggard, was present at both meetings, one in December and one just this last week, there was no student input, there wasn't any other staff input, there wasn't any membership. And there is somebody on Pelee Island out of their 22 students this year that is in grade 8 and already has billeting arrangements and will be on the mainland going to that brand new school. So it's quite exciting. So thank you to all the committee members for all of their work. This was a controversial committee in that it was very apparent because it involved not just a replacement for one school, but indeed the remembering of closure and the imminent closure of 3 more schools and a facility. So 6 schools all total over the last couple of Program Accommodation Review Committee findings and recommendations to close schools. And I also want to make mention of our regulation, because we have a recommendation here as determined by the Board of Trustees, and we have the vote of the committee given us 2 names to be submitted, but I would like to quote from the regulation, naming and renaming of board facilities. I do think that in the process that number 1 and number 6 were problematic, and later in the evening I will be bringing forward a notice of motion. But number 7 is what I want to just say out loud, because not everybody's going to read their board package or had it handy. At a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, the area superintendent will present a report on the deliberations and actions of the name selection committee. This will also include the short list of suggested names. Trustees will then vote to choose one of the suggestions or provide an alternative. And it has been heart-wrenching and very difficult for me. I've had emails, messages, all kinds of phone calls, all kinds of deliberations. It's a hot topic in town. And by town, I mean the town of Essex, that includes Colchester and Harrow, the town of Kingsville, and that's all the FI kids who would normally go to Gosfield North, who go to Kingsville Public, those kids at Kingsville Public, Jack Minor Public School, those who would have gone to Ruth Fenner are now at Jack Minor School, and those who go to Kingsville District High School who previously would have maybe gone to Harrow District High School. So I'm going to use the regulation in point 7, and I'm going to put forward an alternate name. And I have a motion that I'd like to put forward. The recommendation is that the GEC DSB, and I want to state, first of all, nobody in this room knows the name. I told one person in this room knows the name. And I took it from really looking at the 600 submissions and the discussions at the committee beforehand, the long list, the shorter list, the short list, the short list, and the individual. So these names come from, and it was not a name I submitted. So I want to say that. So the motion is that the GEC DSB name the new school on Jasperson Road in Kingsville, Erie Migration Academy. And I'd like to give some rationale, since all the rationale wasn't provided except in the longer list. So Academy. I'll start with that. It comes from a Greek origin. We use it at our K-12 schools.
Could we just procedurally?
Oh, yes.
You're putting
okay.
a motion on the
I'll
floor?
put the motion on the floor and see if it has support. The motion is that the GEC DSB name the new school on Jasperson Road in Kingsville, Erie Migration Academy.
And do we have a seconder? Trustee Sipkar? Okay.
If I could provide some rationale quickly, and some of this was captured in the notes that accompanied every single one of these words, and in all kinds of different configurations with other words. But Academy, this one I think was the word that was, I think, pretty contentious, sort of universally mildly disliked. But I'm fully conceded to it being used. It's a Greek origin. It's a place of teaching and learning. In our regulation, it shows that JK to 12 schools, there's a suggestion to use district school or academy. Our practice has been academy. You'll see that in the short list and in the very, very short list, academy was chosen university. So I'm honoring that. I looked up, the first Google search will probably give you a very narrow definition. I looked up 10 different dictionaries and thesauruses just to make sure, and academy really does fit perfectly. It's true that Westview Freedom is academy and it's not a K-12, but and that there are private schools. That was another criticism about the word academy, that that it's elitist and associated with private schools. There are academies in our district, but Herman Academy and Tecumseh Vista Academy wear that moniker very proudly, and despite it being misunderstood or elitist or narrow. I'm fully conceded to it being used. The second word, migration. I want to commend Public Relations Officer Scott Scantlebury. He shared a really great backgrounder on the geographical, historical, cultural, ecological, what watersheds were where. This school is positioned, because we're on a peninsula, in an odd kind of way. You know, we're the south shore of Essex and we're the north shore of Erie, and the north shore of Erie came up a lot, an awful lot. That was a big name. Erie Shores, North Shore, North Erie, they came up a lot. But for the same reason, there were a lot of Norths going around. I just wanted it shorter than that and didn't want another North on our district list. Shores, when you have the word Erie there, it's kind of, we know that it's referring to something that's a lake. So I want to commend our Public Relations Officer, Scott Scantlebury, because he did share with the committee a great description of the whole catchment area, which is Colchester and Harrow, and, Harrow Public School graduates go, all of Kingsville, and French immersion. If those choose to have extended French at the new school, they can continue on in Kingsville, for example. And of course, the graduates of Pelee Island Public School, because that high school was closed many, many years ago. He shared, that there are marvelous connections to the word migration in Colchester, Harrow, and Kingsville, Pelee Island, and Leamington. The Mississippi and the Atlantic avian flyways intersect over the entire area for both spring and fall migrations. The Festival of the Hawks, held every year in Holiday Beach, is a treat to anyone who has gone down there and to the area nearby in Colchester and Malden, and of course Amherstburg. Harrow residents know this very, very well, and all birders do. Traveling through Harrow this last Sunday, I saw so many swans and waterfowl. It's underway now, the early migration. The monarch butterflies that migrate every spring and fall connect us to Central America, often the homeland of many of the migrant workers who also follow the season. It's always a joy to attend the Low German Conference every spring to get to know the families we serve and who are both Central and South America. They choose that as their home, as well as our schools for their students when they're part of the Canadian family. The dragonfly fall migration flies over my house in Kingsville in the fall, and we welcome migratory birds from all the flyways. Birders arrive from all around the world. Everyone will know, if you're a birder, what the Erie migration is. They come from literally all over the world. Point Pelee and Leamington, Caldwell Nation land are prime sites for pit stops for tired birds who've made it across the lake, and they're resting up for the right velocity and humidity and temperature conditions to head south. Pelee Island Bird Observatory is well known to Pelee Island public school students and others who take the field trips there, as well as special species known only to exist on that very special piece of land in the middle of Lake Erie. So we all come from somewhere and have made this home as Indigenous or settled people. And I think migration honors that whole thing, ecologically and as humans. The students who were deliberating at the naming committee stated they were unhappy at one point because the name migration had fallen off the shorter list when amendments were offered kind of midstream as a last kick at the can before individual votes were cast. There were 24 members on the committee. Putting back migration, found as a popular suggestion amongst those 600 that came from the general public, is a good one and an all-encompassing one. Now, Erie. Erie is an Indigenous word. It's a short form. It comes from a Haudenosaunee language, and I'm uncertain to which of the nations or what language in the Haudenosaunee, which I can attribute it to, but it's said to mean long tail, which could be Long Point in Lake Erie. It could be that it's a long lake, but it's said to mean long tail, the longer word that Erie is shortened to. And also describes a language and a people that were indigenous to the area. I'm glad that we can use indigenous names that came before the settlers came to describe and brand our schools within the district. I think that's a good thing to do. It aligns certainly with our goals of the 94 calls. There is Erie Shores Winery in Colchester, Erie Shores Hospital, Golf Course, Hospice, Family Health Care in Leamington and Kingsville. Erie Shores describes Pelee Island Public School in the truest sense. I mean, it's got Erie Shores all the way around it. Canada's southernmost school with 22 eager students, all set to go in grade 9 this September on the mainland. Another grade 7 right behind, headed to this brand new school. And I mentioned already, Erie North Shore, Erie South, South Shore. It just was too many directions. So just Erie, I think, will do. It's the conundrum of living on a peninsula. So I'm going to say let's be inclusive. Let's give our students a name that can describe this wonderful south shore of Essex County that they call home, that encompasses the most southern part of our country, that honors the oldest geographical name amongst our schools, and given to us by our First Peoples. So my motion's on the floor. Thank you for supporting it, and I really look for your support. I think it's going to be an opportunity to brand and let the other committees do their work to do colors, mascots, and transition.
Anyone have questions on the motion? I do. Oh, go ahead. No, I'll go last. Student trustee Pine.
I just had a question. So you mentioned that migration kind of fell off the list. For Kingsville District Academy, was there any problem that the committee had with that, or is this just kind of an additional name to consider? I was just wondering if there were because that's kind of the norm that we have going in the county to kind of switch. The majority is the location, district, high school or secondary school, so I was just curious about that.
That point was raised and raised and raised and raised, and I want to say to everybody who did raise it, I totally understand that. And if it was one town and one school drawing from one town, at one time Kingsville District High School drew only from Kingsville, and it was quite appropriate. There was a lot of, I don't know what the word is, disappointment, upset. Some of it was there. I think Harrow families found it intimidating to share their longstanding grief of their school closing. They don't have us, Pelee Island, that's a long time ago that their high school changed. It became a library and now is defunct. There was one time Kingsville students many years ago, I almost brought my history books because my grandfather went to Kingsville District High School. My father went to Leamington District High School, District Secondary School. There was a time where Kingsville students went to Leamington before the high school was, fully built to accommodate them and stuff. So there's been a long-standing, not necessarily rivalry, but I think an understanding that the catchment area that we are serving goes beyond the town of Kingsville. And it concerns the town of Essex, certainly, and the township of Pelee, and anybody who wants French immersion from a much larger catchment area. So we're not the one school, and it's not only a high school, it's an elementary school, where there are former names there too that are about to close. So prior to 1998, I lived in the township of Godsfield South, but I live in the town of Kingsville now. I live in the catchment area for Ruthven Public School. But Ruthven Public School closed and all the students went to Jack Minor in the town of Kingsville. So there are long-standing histories of names changing and districts changing and catchment areas changing. So this is just another step in that evolution. So.
Trustee Sipcar, your question?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. It's actually a comment to Trustee Burgess and to the public. I think I'd just like to commend Trustee Burgess for bringing forward a name that was not considered by the committee. I think that it is a bold but fitting choice for the area. I will be honest. I'm not from the area of Kingsville, but I do have roots in the county. But when I saw the names only considering Kingsville, it did kind of raise concern for me because I know that the geography of Kingsville District High School goes beyond, the new school goes beyond Kingsville. And I have to say, I really love the connection to the migration and how central that area is to that and that idea of it bringing forward. I see it as an opportunity to for that entire school to start afresh and chart a new path for itself, and potentially heal a lot of the wounds, things that have happened in the, to have these schools coming together. And I know that this was not an easy deliberation or process, and so I would hate for Trustee Burgess to come away from this and have to wear the decision in a negative way. I think that she should wear it in a positive way. Having lived in that community, and I think that it's a strong and I think poignant name for our school board as well. So having just heard it tonight, I haven't had a lot of time to consider it, but I trust Trustee Burgess from being from that area, and will be supporting it. So thank you.
Trustee McKinley?
Yeah, I'd like to just make a comment, I guess, before my vote. I was a part of this committee. I was also a trustee at the time that we had the vote for the closure of Harrow. That was a grueling meeting of like 500 people at St. Clair College. It was quite a night. And I remember back then and into the transition when we announced the new great big JK to 12 school was going to be built and being there. My understanding was that the new school would not be named Kingsville. That was my understanding, the general understanding of the time of people in Harrow, perhaps not people in Kingsville. They clearly wanted that name. But I definitely, to honor all of the communities that are a part of this new school, will support Erie Migration Academy, because the other two suggestions only included Kingsville. They did not include other names that were brought forward. So for that reason, I will support this title, this name. Thank you.
Do you want to speak? No. Okay, Trustee Buckler? Yeah. Yeah. Trustee Buckler?
Trustee Burgess, I know your pulse is on your communities. I know you have a strong sense. Is there going to be a great deal of backlash over this new name, or are we going to be? I mean, I'm excited. I like that name. I really do. I like the inclusivity in that name. That it's not speaking of the one area, but I'm just concerned with the backlash. That's all.
Trustee Burgess?
I'll be truthful. I think there are effigies being made and burning by tomorrow. I think it's going to be highly contentious, and I think that people are going to say things. And I did it at I put my hand on my heart. You didn't know. Nobody knew.
No.
Okay. And when I didn't make it up, I took it from the list. So I agree. Thank you very much for saying it was bold. It was not bold. It was there. It was there in the lists. Erie was there. Migration was there. The students said, why did you kick off migration and then put Lakeside? We really wanted migration. Do we have to really lose it? Now I feel like you've taken something from us. You know, that kind of thing. So I thought long and hard. So this came from the committee, but just not in this form. Yes, it will be contentious. They will say that this was cooked, that this was made up ahead of time, that we were going to do something different all the way along, and you wasted my time, and why did I go to meetings and come up with these suggestions only for you to ignore them and throw them out, and it will feel like the committee is disrespected. That's not my intention. That doesn't mean that that's not going to happen. So I want to state really clearly that that's not my intention. That's not my intention. My intention has never been, like anybody on the committee, to waste anybody's time. It's to look at, and I want to thank my colleague to say this is a district decision. We look at it and see how it fits. Do we want more norths? Do we want more, like, instant? So one of the things was, from a competitive point of view, you're an athlete, you're going somewhere. How can I tell them, but I'm from Kingsville? Well, the address is in Kingsville, the school is in Kingsville. You can say you're from Kingsville. But the name of the school is Erie Migration Academy. That'll give them a clue, and then 4 more words you can say I'm from Kingsville. You know, it's not denying the location, the address, everything. I hope everybody embraces it. So thanks for your comments. I just wanted to say, though, it did come from the committee, just not those 3 words together all the time. They're always mixed up with some other names.
Trustee Nelson?
Yes, I just wanted to say I think it's a beautiful name and you've provided great meaning to it. Considering where it's coming from everybody on the committee. My biggest concern was how were equity-seeking groups in surrounding areas contributing to the name, and I think, you know, the way you've described it illustrates it quite well. Did you have any more comments on that?
I mentioned earlier that I would probably bring a notice of motion forward to send our policy and regulation back. That'll come in when the agenda hits it. I think what this brought to fore was recommendations for naming for after posthumous naming humans, you know, that in our vetting wouldn't have met the criteria. And would have had a lot of angst in the community by saying, you know, it's not Saint so-and-so because they weren't saints. They were imperfect in some way, and they wouldn't have been able to meet the full criteria for us to now in 2024 name a school. So from equity-seeking groups, I think there is a possibility that this will give more of that than we've had in the past. And the names for that honored people's names always had a little bit of baggage, you know. I've shared, and it's in the history books, it's not new, it's not news, you know. Town of Kingsville, for example, had sundown laws. It's nothing we're proud of, you know, but that's part of our heritage and thing. It's 2024, they don't exist now, you know, but there's a way of also looking at things and thinking, what could be our best part from this side to that side to there to there to here, you know? And this, I think, honors it. So thanks for the support.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes?
can you hear me, Madam Chair? It's Trustee Armstrong.
Yes. You have a question?
Well, I have a comment. Trustee Burgess, I truly appreciate all the thought you've put into this, but because I have been a parent of a school that closed when they closed Blythewood, and I was a teacher at Ruthven when they were closed, the processes were bred mistrust, and I truly think that if the parents and the committee have come up with 4 out of the 5 that had the word Kingsville in it, that how are they going to feel? Is it breeding more mistrust? Because this is such a difficult process as it is going to be as the closure of schools happen. I am uncomfortable going against what the parents have come up with. 4 out of the 5 names have the word Kingsville. So I just, do you have a comment on that?
Okay, Trustee Burgess?
Thank you to my colleague for asking the question. How are they going to react? I think there's going to be a lot of reaction saying that they don't believe that that everybody here knew it and was, you know, in on the deal, and it was predetermined and whatever, and that's nothing could be farther from the truth. I think there is a level of mistrust from the closures. Closing a school and naming a school, 600 submissions. That's a lot of interest. There's a lot of residual and even vestigial, I'll say, grief there from your closed school. And there are about 3 that are going to have closing ceremonies coming up in May and June, and it's tough. I'm going to say it's tough. I've never been to a closing ceremony. I've been to reunions that have been great, but I've never been to a closing ceremony where everybody celebrated, with champagne and said, this is fabulous, our school that we love, and that my parents, my grandparents, we can go back 5 generations more, have gone to, that I'm so glad it's closing. This is a grieving thing. So I think that when they hear the name, and with the recommendations that the committee that worked hard and put these names forward will say that, well, you just wasted my time. And I don't think I'm going to be able to convince some folks that I didn't waste their time. It's not me, I mean our process. I want to be respectful that they have a reason to perhaps add to their mistrust, but I'm going to say that, this is heartfelt, this came from the submissions. I think it's going to be something that will be embraced, and that if we can build trust, it's by putting something new that everybody can join in on.
Supplemental?
Your supplementary question, Trustee Armstrong?
Yes. Yes. Then why was this name not brought up before? Why now? Because it seems like it's, it is at the 11th hour sort of thing. And I do like the name. It sounds great. I'm just concerned of, as somebody else mentioned, the backlash that we are not respecting what the committee has put forward. That's my biggest concern.
I don't think so. Response to that. No. Trustee McKinley, have another question?
Yes.
Okay. Did someone want to comment on Trustee Armstrong's question? Okay. Trustee.
The name migration did come up, and as I said, in the very last name of the 5 names, Kingsville Lakeside Academy was originally Kingsville Migration Academy. And when amendments were allowed in the last kick, because somebody said, well, no, I think we really would like to change, because the one table had, 8 or 9 students or something, we allowed amendments for that last bit, and so migration was kicked off in the last round. But Erie was on the list in many iterations. One of the things that came forward was saying, well, there's Erie Shores everywhere. Our switchboard's going to get phone calls from the hospital, and people are going to say, Erie Shores what? But Shores isn't in it. So there was concern, there was some rationale. I don't think it weighs heavily enough that I wouldn't think that Erie Migration Academy will actually be very good once everybody embraces it.
Sorry, Trustee McKinley?
Yeah, just a couple things I'll bring up. One, to our committee meeting, we started off with this long list of probably 18 names, and then everybody was just making suggestions as to what we should knock off. Well, majority of the committee was from the town that wanted to keep the name of the town in their school name. So all the other names that didn't have that town's name were the ones that were often being suggested to be removed. There were a few that were left on, but predominantly that's where some of those other names would have been dropped off in a quick process. Now, aside from that, I would like to speak. We've been asking about how will the community feel. I'm cognizant also of the other municipalities and communities that are a part of going to this new school, and especially the Harrow community, which is part of a different municipality. So I think a fresh name that does not include the name of either of or any of these schools is the way to go in this particular situation. And I hope that people don't feel that their time was wasted. I certainly don't feel like my time was wasted. It was a process to get to hear and to brainstorm. So that's why I will support this, because not everybody is going to be angry at our decision.
Trustee Pine?
Just before we get to voting, just so that we're able to hear kind of, and the people on the phone are able to vote as well, I would just like to request a call-in ballot, just so we're able, so that everyone's able to vote. And I would just say, I will be supporting this name change. I think that there's nothing wrong with Erie migration. And you know what, sometimes when you're in leadership roles like we all are here today as trustees, it's not always making the popular decision, but it's the one that feels right at the time and right to you. So I think that we shouldn't have a problem supporting this. Thank you.
So I just had one question. In the committee process, because Trustee Burgess, I think you gave very compelling reasons for the words that you were proposing in your motion. And I wondered if a similar presentation was made through the committee and the committee reaction. Because I'm just not clear on that. And I just wanted to add that I did toss around with a bunch of people some names for people from Kingsville, and it's like, hey, we need some good names to throw in, like when there was a call for names. And you're right, Erie came up a lot, migration came up a lot, and also I saw them being put together. So I am not surprised by those words. And I do like fresh starts to new buildings. But I just, I'm also trying to be sensitive, I think as Trustee Buckler was as well, to the reaction from the committee. And so I'm just wondering if that kind of presentation in the thought process was made to the committee for them to give that kind of consideration to this name.
So I chaired the committee. So I felt my only vote was really in the name that I put in amongst the 600 and whatever that we got. I didn't vote. And I gave as much rationale as I could. So the name Erie Migration Academy, I couldn't find it in the short list of the collation of the themes. I saw Erie, lots of different ways of seeing Erie. North Erie Shores, North Erie something or other, Pigeon Bay on Erie, whatever. Erie Shores, I saw a lot of Erie Shores, tons of Erie Shores. I saw migration in all kinds of different configurations. I saw academy, and I saw very strong, don't use academy, please. Why are you using academy? Why do you insist on keeping academy? Saw a lot of anti-academy. But I've conceded to that because that is even showing the regulation saying, well, you can pick district school or something else. Give us something else. Nothing came up. So did Erie Migration Academy come up? I'm not sure it came up in those just 3 words. I think there were extra words that came amongst that. Erie District Migration Academy or something different. But the other criticism I saw and heard amongst even the submissions, please don't give us something with 8 names. Please don't give us something with some crazy acronym. Please don't whatever. So I thought, keep it short and sweet. Did you hear that? Me, keep it short and sweet. The irony. Oh, the irony. So I kept it, I thought 3 words, and there was a lot of Eries, a lot of migration, and a lot of academy. It was really honestly as simple as that. And I thought as much as how they connected. What is the Erie migration? What is that? And how could everybody buy in where they lived?
Maybe if I could hear from the people on the phone. We have Trustee Armstrong, Trustee Chin. The motion is to name the new school, Erie Migration Academy. Trustee Armstrong?
Trustee Quinn can go first.
Okay, Trustee Chin, your vote.
Can I say something?
Did you have a question or something on the motion?
Yeah, I have something to say on the motion. Is that okay?
It is, but I have to admit that we're all struggling to hear you. So we'll try our best.
Oh, okay. I have the same concern with Trustee Armstrong. I think we have the policy and we have the committee formed based on the policy, and seems that the motion kind of go away from the decision suggestion of the committee. So I think it's kind of not prudent to rush to decide a name. Just came out, from trustees, and I think we may, put this name back to the committee and let them to respond, to argue, discuss, and make new suggestions to us. I think it's a more prudent way, more careful to avoid the harm of certain people. So I would suggest to hold on this motion or put this back to the committee to re-suggest. I think it's a more democratic way to respect the committee and no rush to make the decision.
Thank you, Trustee Chin. I will just point out that our regulation does provide that we can bring other names to the floor in the process. Trustee Burgess pointed that out at the beginning, and in response to your concerns, I will read it again. The trustees can vote to choose one of the suggestions from the committee or provide an alternative. So it's within the regulations that we can do this. It's not going against the work of the committee, but it's within our right. We have the responsibility for naming the school, and we have the right to suggest an alternative. Trustee Burgess?
Just to the other part, if I could, through you, Madam Chair, for clarification. It's about the timing. I would not support any referral back. I would not support any deferment at all. When I asked if we needed to send it back, if we needed more discussion, I think this thing has been, like a flogged horse, I think we've got all the opinions we need. To defer would mean that the next thing that happens, which is the selection of a group who determines the mascots and the colors, etc. And the transition committee, which is how do we pass the torch from the closing ceremonies into getting everybody into this welcoming new space, and all of those activities, all that planning, in order to pick, I'm not getting a paint color for the school. We're at the point where the contractors, I have been told, need to be able to get their marching orders for the next part, and that's branding it. That's getting the name out, getting all those things that happen when we brand a new school. And because March break, we only have one board meeting, deferring it back at this time would mean delaying all of that work for the contractors. We're just making it in a timely way now for both of our namings to go forward and brand our new schools. So delay is not serving the decision well.
And I will just add to that, I assume that was explained to the committee, because I know it was explained to the committee that I sat on for Tecumseh, that the schools are anxious to move forward with the next step, which is the branding, and they can't do that until we decide the name. But that doesn't mean that you can't vote one way or the other on this, to Trustee Ching, but that's just in response to your concerns. Okay? So now we're going to go to the vote on the motion that's on the floor.
I have a comment. It's Trustee Armstrong.
Yes? No one's voted yet.
Okay, well, you said you were going to the vote.
Yes.
Trustee Burgess, I truly appreciate your thought behind it, but because of my experience, as I mentioned before, of the mistrust that was bred, I cannot support this motion because I view it as not respecting all the work that was done before. So I will not be supporting the motion, but I thank you for all your thought to put into it.
So,
Trustee
Chin, your vote?
may I speak and something else?
But no,
Yeah.
we're voting on the motion that's on the floor. Trustee Chin? We're asking for your vote. Are you going to
I'm not-
vote, or are you abstaining, or?
Because I want to say something regarding the migration. Since you decided to choose the new name, not
Our
coming out of
debate is over. We've spent quite a bit of time on this, and we have a lot of agenda. So I'm calling the vote on the motion on the floor. So we have
Okay,
one
I'm not
opposed,
supporting that.
and Trustee Chin, your vote?
Opposed.
Opposed, two opposed. And can we do the hands in the room, or do I have to go around? Support. Yes, all those in support. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. So the vote was 6 in support and 2 opposed. Thank you. And I will remind trustees that we do have a long agenda. So,
Yeah, I was just going to suggest we move L3 through L6 together all at once.
yes, would you like to make that motion?
I'll move it.
Okay, we have a motion for L3 to L6. Trustee Sipkar supports. Any questions on any part of L3 to L6? Trustee McKinley?
Yeah, I was just going to make a quick comment. I'd like to thank admin for all the work that went into these. I especially appreciated the epilepsy and the diabetes one. As a parent who had a child in our schools with diabetes, with type 1, I certainly appreciate the policy and regulations that we have, and the tweaks that we have made to it. Definitely went over those line by line. The policy committee did spend quite a bit of time on all of these, you can be assured. So just thank you for all of the work that went into these. And I'll be supporting all of them.
And I would just add that trustees were provided with the epilepsy and diabetes tonight on their desk because there was a problem in the package with the printing. Okay, so you have them. Okay, anyone else on any of those items? No? Then I'll call the vote. All those in support of L3 to L6. That's carried. Thank you very much. L7 is already our school year calendar for next school year. That came up quick, it seems. Moved by Trustee Buckler, supported by Trustee McKinley. Any questions on the school year calendar? Trustee McKinley?
Yeah, just for clarification, I was looking on the legend and it's got a P here for Professional Activity Day, but I did not see any Ps on the calendar as I've seen in the past. I did note that there were some nice orange colored days. I'm assuming those might be the professional activity days. We could either change the legend and just put an orange box,
Thank you,
or
Trustee.
add some Ps.
For you,
It
Madam
would make
Chair.
it easier for parents in the
Thank
future.
you. Thank you very much. As you can see, this is just a draft at this time as we wait for approval. Good eye, and thank you for noticing. My focus for my first time doing this was ensuring that we met the requirements from the ministry with 194 days, ensuring that we were at the halfway mark with 97 days, or 98 days, or 97 days with the 2 semesters. Because that does impact our payroll. So that was primarily our focus. So yes, they do have 7 PA days that are highlighted in orange. And then once the final template is released, that will be up on our board website and some updates.
Trustee Burgess?
So this is what we send as a draft with corrections, et cetera, to the ministry, and it comes back and says, now you can distribute it amongst all the supporters. I have a question just for this year for the eclipse. Are we now short instructional days? What happens when we have a shorter of instructional days? Do we ever know? Okay, I can see the thing of don't worry about it.
The director is going to respond.
So through you, Madam Chair, we did speak with the Deputy Minister as well as our regional office to make sure both myself and the director from Windsor Essex Catholic met with them together so that we weren't going to put us in a compromised position.
The school year calendar? No? No? Okay, I'll take the vote. All those in support of the school year calendar, that's carried. Thank you very much. L8, Trustee Sipcar.
Sure, I'll move L8, but I'd like to move it as just with a slight amendment, if that's okay. So in the second line, if it could instead say, during the month of February, beginning February 2025. So strike the words 2024, 2025 there. Sorry, beginning in 2024, 2025. So it's crystal clear that this is intended to be a motion that would start, yes, next year, February 2025. And then if I get a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Friendly amendment.
Sure.
And
if I
do we
get
have a seconder,
I'll speak to it.
Trustee Nelson. Okay.
Sure. Okay, thanks. Through you, Madam Chair. I am moving this motion as an ally to the Black community, wanting to recognize their contributions and history to Windsor Essex. Following the lead of other institutions in the area, such as the University of Windsor, who first raised the Pan-African flag last year, and as a leader for students and families in the region, I think it is incumbent upon the Greater Essex County District School Board to raise this flag during Black History Month, February, in support and solidarity with those families. From my understanding, this flag represents Black people, Black liberation, and Black joy, something that our board should embrace and honor. Anti-Black racism is still alive and well, and this flag showcases our firm support of the Black community here at Greater Essex. So I look to my colleagues for support on this motion.
I would just like to say thank you for bringing it forward, and I'm surprised we didn't think of it sooner, but I'm glad that it's here now. Does anyone have any questions? Trustee McKinley?
Yes, thank you. I definitely like the notice. Just wanted to ask, our policy calls for the requester to provide the flags. So I'm just wondering where, because I don't see that there's any one of our equity groups coming forward to ask. So who therefore will be providing the monies for the flags?
Yes. I brought that concern to the director because I know what the policy said, the regulations, and I got a very good answer that the anti-Black racism strategy does have a budget to support these kind of initiatives, and that the cost of the flags might be in the neighborhood of, was it? Yeah, $2,500, and that could be accommodated in that budget. The director could add to that.
And I'll just add to that as well. We did go back to other flags and what was done, and I'll use an example of Every Child Matters. There was some community, and the board covered the cost of some of those as well. So it's not always, if a community brings it forward, then, but when it's a board motion that comes forward, they have been done differently.
That's the distinction, that this is a board motion, not something that the community is requesting, in which case the community would have to provide the flags. Trustee Burgess?
So that's the initial cost. Flags tatter, they get windblown, they need replacing. Is it the Dismantling Anti-Black Racism Committee going to be around? It's not an ad hoc committee. Is it going to, how long? My question would be for maintenance. It's not a large budget item. I think it's worthy of it. So I don't think it necessarily has to always come out of that committee line, but down the road, we'll need to replace that.
And I'll just add to that, we do have a meeting with our implementation committee. And obviously this will be on the agenda, and then we can speak to them at that time. There may be avenues that they could help us explore as well in terms of some people wanting to contribute.
On the motion, trustee McKinley for the second time?
Yeah, just, I guess for, just lost my thought. Can't remember what I was just going to say.
And I'm going to call for the vote. All those in support? Are there any opposed? Hearing none, that's carried. Thank you very much. Reports to be received. M1 is the report of the Director of Education.
Thank you. So the provincial government and the Ministry of Education have given us a lot to think about in just over 7 weeks in 2024. In January, it was announced, if you recall, that beginning in September of 2025, kindergarten curriculum will be revised to include mandatory learning through clear and direct instruction in reading, writing, and mathematics. And this will include new learning expectations for kindergarten students with no other changes to the program. And we also recently have shared that we will be starting all of our learners on the first day of school following Labor Day and not a delayed start into the second week for our newest learners. Also earlier this month, it was announced that once again for September 2025, there will be a mandatory Black History learning for grade 7, grade 8, and grade 10 as a part of the history curriculum, and it will consist of the study of exceptional contributions and history of Black Canadians who helped build Canada. The ministry will also be consulting with historians and educators and the Black communities to inform and to help develop this new curriculum, and we look forward to working with our partners to provide input to the ministry related to that curriculum coming for September 2025. As well, the government announced that it will not appeal the Court of Appeal decision on Bill 124, and that the law will be repealed, which was enacted in 2019, which imposed a wage cap limiting any public sector salaries increases of 1% annually and over a 3-year period. So with that comes a tremendous amount of work for both our HR and our finance department in the midst of negotiations, in the midst of trying to get T4 slips done, in the midst of everything. And I'll add that there was no additional funding provided from the ministry to be able to cover the extra work that all of the staff in those departments will be doing. In March, we will share our Student Achievement Plan data, which we received a few weeks ago from the ministry finally, and we are required to post that publicly in April 2nd to be exact, and it needs to be posted to our community on our website, so we'll be bringing that forward to trustees during the month of March board meeting. Next slide, please. So this is Black History Month, and throughout the school board, such as at Gore Hill Public School, students are learning about and appreciating the contribution of Black Canadians to our country and to the obstacles that they faced. Chinese New Year was celebrated on February the 10th, and the students at Southwood Public School found out that this is the year of the dragon. Leamington District Secondary School student Ben Margison was presented with the Essex Region Conservation Authority's Youth Award for, among other things, his leadership in and his commitment to protecting local ecosystems. Mardi Gras was last week, and students at Central Public School got to enjoy and learn about this tradition with a big feast of pancakes. It was great to work with the Windsor Express Basketball Club to provide information and exposure to skilled trades at the Skilled Trades Expo at the WFCU Center, and it was a wonderful opportunity for our students. It took and involved dozens of our community partners, and thank you so much to our student success team who did all of the work to make it happen and showcased all of the amazing skilled trade programs that we have at GEC DSB. There were so many people there, it was unbelievable. There were people everywhere and lots of students and parents, which was absolutely wonderful. Southwood and Gore Hill Public School were recipients of Gold Star recycling bins from the Essex Solid Waste Authority, and you get one of those by applying to be rated on your recycling efficiency, and then they received an A+ also on the test. It was another successful year for the Hetherington Public School RoboHawks at the Ontario Southwest Provincials of the First Lego League. They earned the Engineering Excellence Award, and congratulations to them. Love the suit and the matching tie. So this is a little bit of a long story, but a tasty one. This is Oliver Taylor Savoy. He's a student at Ford City Public School, and as you can see, he's earned an honorable mention in our administrative building's chili cook-off that we hosted a few weeks ago. And Oliver learned about the event. I'm not sure exactly how he learned about it yet, but he did, all the way over at Ford City Public School. And so he took it upon himself to apply to enter his own recipe in our competition that we hosted here. And I will say, his chili was delicious. So maybe not just an honorable mention, but actually a first place. And so last year, Oliver started his very own successful chili cook-off competition at Ford City, and this year will be the second annual, and it will be coming up on February the 29th. And we brought Oliver an apron, and we brought him a few other little trinkets, and he was very disappointed with me that I didn't alter the apron to fit him, and he expects that it be fixed before his February chili cook-off day. On February 1st, the W.F. Herman Steps class hosted a friendship dance at their school, which was attended by approximately 100 students from across our board, and everybody, as you can see, had a wonderful time. February 12th to the 17th was Random Acts of Kindness Week, and again, Student Senate was very involved in doing nice things, as Student Trustee Pine mentioned, and they put up positive notes with messages on everybody's door in the admin building, and mine is still sticking there, and I will leave it, and thank you very much for doing that for us. It's theater season at our schools. The footlights will be blazing after months of preparation and rehearsal for public performances. The WCCA is presenting Legally Blonde, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the performance this coming Saturday. Thank you so much to Principal Josh Canty for the invite, and the musical at Kennedy will be Disney's Frozen, and anybody can contact the schools for ticket information. Something far less theatrical, but incredibly dramatic, is nonetheless its budget consultation process time, and it's well underway. We're taking public input about next year's budget through the survey that will be open until March the 1st, and that there's also going to be a public meeting coming up later this year before the budget is actually finalized, and we encourage everyone to please provide input to us to help make us informed decisions. And then the kindergarten registration period is underway. Tomorrow evening, all of our elementary schools across the district will be hosting their open houses from 5 o'clock until 7 o'clock. You can sign up your youngest learner at your area, Greater Essex County District School Board school, or you can use the online registration tool that's available on our website. Our kindergarten classes, as I mentioned, will begin the very first day of school this year with everyone else. And our schools are really great places to be. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow night to meet some of our newest registrants at both Begley Public School and Legacy Oak Trail School tomorrow night. And that concludes. I'm happy to take any questions.
Question, Trustee Sipkar?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. My question has to do with Bill 124. And I know it was buried in there at the beginning, but I can imagine that the impact to our board is quite significant. I wonder if you and maybe your staff have been able to crunch the numbers and what the impact to our budget looks like, and if there's anything that trustees should be concerned about that are unfunded.
So thank you, through you, Madam Chair, and I will let Trustee Armstrong respond for the, because she still calls me Superintendent Houston, so we're good. Superintendent Armstrong, respond because she has a far better piece around the numbers. But yes, there will be a significant impact, and trustees should be very concerned of the impact that it will have on our current budget as well as moving forward. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. The amount for Bill 124 will be funded by the ministry through the GSN, and they'll do that by adjusting the salary benchmarks. So that's important to understand, because if we have positions here at the board that are incremental and are not specifically funded, then that becomes a cost to the board to have to address. It won't come through funding from the ministry. Unless we also have and if there were positions that are funded through a PPF, through time-limited funding that allowed us to hire incremental staff, then the funding for that will come through a PPF. So that's important that we understand, because we do have deficits in certain areas because we've chosen as a board to staff a certain way. The estimate right now, it's high level. The estimate for the unionized groups right now is $41.5 million. For the non-bargaining unit employees, the estimate, assuming that they get the same amount, we're working off that assumption right now, is $1.3 million. The people not impacted by this at all, there would be no adjustments right now for the director, the supervisory officers, or the principal or vice principal groups. In terms of what would be unfunded to the board, it's challenging because not all the positions that are funded are defined in the GSN by an FTE. So for example, the school facility and operations funding we get from the ministry does not tell us how many custodians to hire or what the facility services department is supposed to look like. They give a benchmark for square footage for our facilities, and there's a notional amount built into there for a benchmark. So that's hard for us to quantify. We can't really quantify that. But our best estimate right now is it would be in excess of $1 million unfunded. So our $8.9 million deficit right now, which we have no reason at this point to believe anything on that is going to change. We're probably looking closer now to at least $10 million. Until we finalize, remember that we're going back now to 2019, and it's for anybody that worked for the board within the union or the NBE group is entitled to it. So it's working through all the mechanics of that.
Supplemental. So if I'm understanding you correctly, basically it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1 million, but it's still a high level estimate from our current budget this year that's going to be now added to our deficit again because the ministry has not specifically provided for that funding at this current moment in time.
Yes.
So we'll be going over 2% of our allowed amount. Okay.
Yes.
Trustee Burgess?
So supplemental to that, procedurally, what's next? Because I mean, obviously the province knows because they know that what the bill, repealing of the bill is. So procedurally, what do we do? Do we have to go again with something because we've hit the 2%? Like what do we do next?
Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair. Honestly, I'm not positive because we've never been in this position before. I do know that our in-year deficit elimination plan still has not been approved. The 2% has not yet been approved by the Minister of Education. So I don't know is the short story to that.
Stay tuned on that one.
Although, to be honest, we would probably we would alert the ministry. I think even though we'll get the in-year deficit, once we quantify and know what that unfunded portion is going to be, we will notify the ministry that that's incremental to the in-year deficit elimination plan that had been filed.
Supplemental, ma'am, we can't be the only one.
We're not the only one. I know that the senior administration has raised the concerns to the ministry. just over how we're physically managing to do all these calculations. The chairs of all the boards across the province have also raised this to the minister, but we really didn't. I mean, the only answer we got was, yes, sorry about your luck. But, yeah. So there's no good information to share on this. We just have to keep moving along, and hopefully we'll hear more down the line. Are we doing the director's report?
Yes.
Correct. Any more questions on the director's report? No. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will thank the director also for acknowledging the Random Act of Kindness Week to all the trustees. Thank you very much. The report of our OPSPA director. Do we have a report for this meeting?
There hasn't been a board of directors meeting. That one will take place next week. I did just want to say that I did have a conversation with Director Houston about the impact of Bill 124, and I'll be bringing that forward. I will say, as a comment to that, it obviously is a positive thing for our staff, and really it's just about advocating to the ministry to follow through on that funding, because it is incredibly important. So I'm looking to our OPSPA colleagues who do have a good relationship, hopefully to be able to apply some diplomatic pressure, as I know we're not the only board. Switching gears, we are hosting a Western regional meeting here at Greater Essex on April 6th. So I reached out to Director Houston and Superintendent Dubin, and it looks like we're going to be hosting a group. I don't think all the details have been completely, decided on yet, but we do want to highlight some of our partnerships in the trades and some of the excellent work that we're doing with that. So if any of the trustees are available that day, I would invite you to attend that meeting. And yeah, it'll be good to showcase some of our good work there. And I think that is it for now. I'm looking forward to the Board of Directors meeting next week, and we'll go from there. And I do know that PES happened, but I was not able, so thank you to all the trustees who were able to make it on behalf of Greater Essex. I'll leave it there.
Just add that I am aware that the president of OPSPA is aware of the financial pressures with regard to Bill 124 and is on it. Yeah. Any questions on the OPSPA report? Trustee Burgess?
Well, I do know that James L. Dunn was mentioned at PES because we did have a regional caucus meeting, et cetera, and they were interested in seeing the new school adaptive reuse as well. Focus on the trade would be great. I don't know if that's a field trip, if that's somebody who comes in and brings a presentation, but I do know that they were interested in seeing that building as well. So just a heads up.
I just quickly looked at Director Houston and Superintendent Dubin, and I don't, we'll talk. Okay.
Thank you. I don't have anything from the chair's report to add that hasn't already been said. There were a couple of things I was going to highlight, but they've already been covered by the director's thorough report. So I'll just pass and we'll move on to trustee question period. Trustee Sipkar?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I thought I'd sneak in there right away. So we heard from a few delegates tonight about the tracks and the closure of the tracks, and I've spoken to them over the last week or so. With respect to the tracks that are being slated for closure from the report back in September of 2023, where are we in that process, and is there any sort of opportunity for a pivot or reconsideration?
Thank you through Madam Chair. So the report's been issued and Facility Services needs to tender the work for the removal and for the regrassing of the area. So that process still needs to occur. I guess to pivot, a couple of considerations. That work, first of all, has to happen over the summertime when schools are not in session. So decisions would have to be made, and I think it's challenging to do that when we don't have our GSN announcements yet. I think it's important to remember that we have an $8.9 million deficit plus, after we've talked about Bill 124 and the fact that, a third of our deficit is going to go. There are significant renewal needs across the system. We have over $515 million of renewal needs. And of that, 57 million of that is urgent. 150 million of that is high priority. The only capital funding that we have from the ministry is from school condition and school renewal. School condition, we can't really use that because that's meant for repair, rejuvenation of buildings and building components. Except for 30%, which we can use for inside the school, like for painting and millwork, and for site work such as paving. For school renewal, again, that funding is intended again for building systems and for building components. A lot of this is based on condition assessments that the ministry does every 5 years by going into schools. That's how that money is to be spent. Also, the ministry has made it, encourages school boards to address facility condition, ventilation, health and safety, general code requirements, and accessibility. So I'm going to strongly suggest that if there's an intent or an interest in redoing some of those tracks, school renewal and school condition money should not be considered. There's far too many needs in the system. And that would mean having to go back into surplus, and that is a risk for us at this point in time. Tracks, again, they're nice amenities. We understand that. I know it's hard to take those things out, but we need to focus on, my recommendation is focusing on the things that support the educational component of schools and the curriculum itself, which the tracks necessarily don't serve entirely. I appreciate what was said, but we've got a lot of financial challenges we need to face.
Supplemental?
Sure. So as a supplemental then, the report indicated like the estimates from the architect back in September, let's say it was roughly $1 million. Has that money been accounted for in this year's current budget? And if it has, could you also put out other tenders for repaving with just asphalt to see if those come in line or less than a strict removal? So if we have that money allocated, can we use it in a way that, even if it's like around the same amount, but it doesn't have to be for exactly just the removal. It could be for repaving with asphalt.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. My guess, and I'd have to say it's a guess, is when we tender the work, more likely than not, like we've seen with any other construction-related project, these things tend to be more expensive than what we originally thought. Repaving it, we could certainly do a tender for that, but what happens when, I think the board needs to make a decision, actually, quite honestly, about whether you want to retain these tracks and the maintenance of them. And we've all seen what happens during winter season with potholes, and when the freeze and the cold with asphalt, it's going to crack. So are we intending to continue to pay for those things? We need to make that decision as trustees. You need to decide that. And if that's your priority. The longer we defer it, the longer these tracks or these walking trails are going to stay closed because the work has to occur in the summertime. And I think it's important we don't oversimplify. It's not just digging it out and relaying it again. There's gravel. We got to think about drainage. There's a lot of other costs that are associated with this than just digging it out and replacing it. So I take what the community said as feedback, but I think, we don't want to oversimplify either what needs to happen here.
Trustee McKinley?
Yeah, I didn't have a question until Trustee Sipcar brought it up, and then it did refresh my memory. I believe when we voted on that some time ago.
Point of clarification, trustees
Oh,
did
we
not
didn't
vote
vote.
on
You're
this.
right. When we received the report, you're correct. We did not vote for clarification. But when we received the report, I did ask a question around what we would be doing to actually get grass to grow after they take out the tracks that are there, because I have a vision of oval-shaped mud piles. Great big giant oval-shaped mud, because I don't think the grass is going to take if nobody is there watering it through the whole summer. How are we ever going to get the grass? It's just going to die. So I know you were going to consider looking into what that would look like, but I'm not sure if you ever got a chance to actually, do that yet.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. That's definitely a challenge because we see it when we build new schools and we're trying to grow grass. So I certainly appreciate the question. I think that what we would expect and require would be part of whatever RFP or tender that we put together in terms of the expectations. Certainly that would be a work of the contractor to do that, but I would have to follow up further with facility services in terms of watering and things of that nature.
Are there any other questions? Student Trustee Pine?
I have questions. Trustee Chin?
Through you, Madam Chair. I just heard, and I don't need an answer tonight, obviously, just so if we can find out later, from students at Essex Public School. Their small equipment was recently removed, but not much reason was given. So if I could just know what the reason behind that was, it doesn't have to be answered tonight at all. Just
Is that playground equipment?
yes. Yes, the small one was recently removed. So just in the future, thank you.
Yeah, usually it's removed for safety reasons if there's something broken, but we can, there's certification requirements, but yeah. Superintendent Armstrong can get back to you on that. Okay, thank you for the question. Trustee Burgess and then Trustee Chin. Yes, I've got you on the list.
I don't know whether it'll be a perennial question, but I've been asked again. I did clarify it within the community. It's a hot topic. Everybody wants to know if there's any update. I've heard that the grade 9 enrollment is one of the largest at the new build at Erie Migration Academy, and that the largest enrollment that we've had in decades. But whether portables are used, if there is a need for portables. I noted that was in the minutes from the last meeting, but there is real concern that we're going to be overrun. So is there any update to any new registration that would require portables?
Anybody? Oh, Superintendent Allender.
Oh, thank you, through you, Madam Chair. At this point, staffing still hasn't been done, but based on the numbers that we currently have, portables do not look like they're in the future.
Trustee Chin, your question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just heard Superintendent mention that the track is not part of the educational component of schools.
Point of order. This is trustee question period.
Yeah, my question.
Do you have a question?
Why track is not educational component of school? It's so important for the students for their physical education. And yeah, I have another question after.
What? So I think the question.
Why is it not considered an educational component?
Okay, so the director is going to try and answer.
So thank you for the question, through you, Madam Chair. Not all of our schools have tracks. There are some secondary schools that do not have any tracks. So although phys ed classes will use a track if they have them available to them, we can still run all of the curriculum under the phys ed without having a track in the school. And I can think of multiple examples that don't have a track. Walkerville Collegiate, Forrester, when they were open. There's several. So it's not considered an actual educational requirement.
Which is part of the reason why it's not funded by the ministry. Yeah. We get no funding for tracks. So did you have a second question, Trustee Chin?
Yeah, I have another question because I know previously we talked about the track and field issue, and I wonder what process have we done, because we do have concerns, and I don't know how it gets to this part now that you are decide to go ahead and treat the track and cover it with grass, and to what process have we approved that, or you just ignore our concerns and go ahead and do make your decisions?
Superintendent Armstrong is going to try and answer that.
Respectfully, this report was brought forward to trustees in September. So we've now gone through almost 6 months, and there hasn't really been any conversation or concern. I've met with each of the school principals that were impacted by the determination. The decision always comes down to initially to health and safety, and this is definitely a safety issue in terms of these the tracks. At the last Finance and Operations Committee meeting, we brought forward a report on OSB insurance premiums, and the board's liability insurance premiums are 25% higher. That's $134,000 higher. And so we're going to do what we can to mitigate risk of injury and liability to the board. And nobody wants to hear that, and I get it. That's my job, though, is to bring these things forward to you. There is public budget. We got a budget survey out. The public is invited to share their feedback in the budget survey. And we have 2 public budget consultation meetings, one on March 19th, our next board meeting, and at the Ops and Finance Committee meeting on April the 2nd. And again, the public's encouraged to share their feedback so that trustees can hear that information. We'll certainly collate all the information that comes through on the budget surveys so it can be considered all together as part of the budget deliberation process. But at this point in time, we need to address the health and safety concerns, and we've got to really give consideration to the long-term maintenance costs associated with that and how it's going to be paid for, because they are not funded by the ministry, or else we would probably be building this into construction budgets for schools that we're building and all those sorts of considerations.
Thank you. Trustees, Trustee Pine, you had a question? No. Oh, that was just, okay. Anyone else? Nope. Then I'm going to move on to notices of motion. Trustee Sipkar, we have got a lot.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. My notice of motion is for administration to put forward the tender/RFP for both option 1, the removal and replacement of tracks with grass, and the second option, referring to the report from September 2023, to repair and replace the base with asphalt for all 4 tracks, Bell River, Herman, Massey, Windsor Stadium, for trustee consideration and decision in spring of 2024.
And Trustee Burgess and Buckler.
Thanks, Madam Chair. My notice of motion is the recommendation that the GECDSB refer the policy naming and renaming of board facilities reference number PPL01 and its regulation naming and renaming of board facilities reference number RPL01 back to the policy committee for reconsideration and review.
Thank you. And Trustee Buckler, your notice of motion?
My notice of motion is a request for a motion to be looked at the April board meeting, so I'll give you guys a month off. And just to let Superintendent Armstrong know I am paying attention. That the policy committee review and bring back to the board the trustee expense policy and regulation with a vision towards clarity of approved and eligible expenses, priorities around trustee spending, and fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with the notice of motion? No. Okay, then I'm going to move on to announcements.
Yep.
Trustee Burgess.
I had my mic on, my apologies. My announcement is on March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Like many of the other announcements that we had, you also have a choice to come and see Arsenic and Old Lace, a classic comedy farce at Migration Hall featuring retired principals Norm Ross, Dave Garlick, and Al Timmons in key roles, and beloved Mr. Doug Dewey as the retired, as Lieutenant Rooney of the Brooklyn, New York police force. We also have in our cast recent nominees and winners of the inaugural Windsor-Essex Theatre Critics Awards for Best Actor, Actress, etc. Tickets are online, and March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd is one weekend only. Friday night closes on a Sunday matinee.
Mr. Crowe.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Are there any other announcements? Seeing none, then we've reached the end of our approved agenda, so I will thank everybody for their time this evening and declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.